Lockdown project 6 is this, or 5? I can't remember, I've lost count now. So Les Paul kit, or Les Paul body and neck from my good friend Brian Hayward, and yeah, I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with it yet. The neck and body kind of fit quite nicely, but I've never done a glued neck before, and I've never done a break angle, which you have to do on Les Pauls. So I'm thinking I might do a bit of a hybrid, maybe a junior, a Les Paul junior, but with a Tele bridge with a humbucker in it, which is something I've got here. Maybe that would go in there like that kind of thing. This kind of idea. So it needs quite a bit of work, quite a bit of shaping, quite a bit of drilling. Needs a couple of dot inlays. It's going to be quite the project. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. Let's begin. Right then, so because I'm going to do this fender style with some kind of fendery bridge, I need to not do a break angle, but I do need to raise it up a bit so I can get the bridge height correct. So I've made a little piece to go into the neck pocket there, and I've made another little piece which goes round the neck heel there. I'm going to glue them in, and so when I glue the neck on, it should give me the right height with a bit of luck. Right, let's see how that goes. Okay, before we do any gluing, just trying to make sure that the bridge to the 12th fret and the nut to the 12th fret are 12 and a half, so they are the same. Cool. Right then, moment of truth. Time to take off the clamps and see how it glued. There's one. There's two. Do you know what? That's not too bad. It seems to have glued pretty well. As you can see, I've filled in this pickup route with a bit of wood because the scratch plate's going to go over this because I'm doing a junior style, and although it will cover it where the holes are for the scratch plate, I needed a bit of wood to screw into. I'm going to fill this hole in up here as well with a bit of dowel. So that's good, that went well. So now I need to put everything on it, all the hardware, mark it out, drill it, attach it, string it up, make sure everything lines up, and then we can think about starting on the finish. So let's grab a pencil and off we go. Right, so all the holes for the string through body have been drilled, and for the bridge I've put some filler just around the edge of the neck, just where there's a tiny little, smaller than a millimetre gap where I guess the glue takes up that space, and I've filled in this little cavity as mentioned before. So we just need to wait for all that to go off, and then I think I'm going to be in a position to start sanding and grain filling, and then have a think about the switching we're going to do. Okay, so now the neck is all attached and filled and sanded around the gaps, and I've filled in this pickup cavity, and I've done a very light sand on the whole body. I now need to grain fill because this wood is very porous, and if I'm going to try painting it and get a smooth finish, I need to fill in all the grain. I've never done grain filling before, so we'll see how this goes. I've watched some YouTube videos. Apparently I need to sort of scrape it on with something flat and work it into the grain. We'll see how it goes. There are a couple of things in life that I really don't like doing. One of them is gardening, another one is driving. I've just discovered a third one is grain filling. This stuff is doing the job, but it's literally like icing the worst cake in the world. And when I'm done, I'm going to have to sand for days. So I don't know if this is the heat at the moment or what, but you can see the frets are actually lifting off the board, and when I tap them down they just pop out the other side. So I don't really know what to do about this because they're literally coming off the fretboard. I don't know if I need a special fret press tool or something, but it's almost impossible to get them to sit now. They're all just popping off the board. So I've just popped the frets out and they all came out a bit too easily, so I'm sure it's the heat that's possibly making the wood expand and the frets come loose. So my thought is, do I ever go at refretting this, which I've never done before, or do I make a fretless guitar, which I've seen Guthrie Govan play, and put little bits of veneer in the slots and sand it down flat. It would be pretty niche, but it might be kind of cool. Right, so after 3 whole days of sanding, I finally got this pretty glassy smooth, the grain filler. It took an awful lot of sanding, to the point where I actually went and purchased an orbital sander just to get the worst of it off. I think possibly I laid it on too thick, but anyway, it's done now. So I used 120 grit sandpaper, then 240, and so on until I got to 1000 grit sandpaper to get the really super smooth finish. And now it's ready for a sanding sealer and a primer. So I've taped off the fretboard and the truss rod cover. I've used black electrical tape because I always find masking tape bleeds a little bit. I find nothing seems to get through this electrical tape. And I've purchased some primer sealer base coat. So I've never done this before either, so I'm going to make a little dust sheet area for spraying in the garage, and we'll see how we go. Okay, that's the fourth coat of primer, sanding sealer. It seems to have gone on pretty well. Hopefully once we're into this being dry, we can rub it back with some very fine sandpaper and think about doing the first colour coat. So it's a failure. I put the paint on after the grain filler and the primer, and unfortunately you can still see the grain. I did sand it until it was like an ice rink. It was so smooth, and I put some layers of paint on and I was very careful, and it's still very grainy. So I'm going to sand it all back and start again. This is a really tough learning process. One good thing that's come out of this, my orbital sander is amazing. It's literally made complete light work of this. That's just over an hour of sanding, and to be honest, I've got a little bit of tidying up to do, but ultimately that is pretty darn good. So yeah, so going to sand it with 1000 grit sandpaper now to make it super smooth, and probably oil it, maybe tongue oil. I don't know, I'm definitely not going to paint it. The scratch plate will cover this, and I'll have to work out something to cover this. But yeah, back to the wood again. When in doubt, tongue oil it out. Don't know why I didn't do this in the first place. I guess I just wanted to have a go at painting. But the magic of pure tongue oil has really brought the grain out. Oh well, it was a long way around to get to it, but yeah, I think we're going to go with that. I'm probably going to put a coin over that or something cool just to cover it. And you'll always see the old colour in the pickup cavity, so control cavity, because I'm not going to sand all that out. Okay, so let's tongue oil the other side and accept that it's an oil finish. So now, for the third time, I've sanded it back to the wood, and I'm going to have another go at finishing it. I'm going to try a Rit dye this time. I think I was pretty disillusioned with it a month ago, but once I've had a bit of time away, I've thought about it, and yeah, I've sanded it all back again. And with a bit of luck and a fair wind, third time lucky, we'll go for a dye after we've done already a failed spray paint and a failed tongue oil. We'll see how this goes. The next thing to do is to cut a scratch plate, or a pickguard, whatever you want to call it. So I bought a sheet of pickguard material, 3-ply, and I've made a template of the pickguard I want, and with a bit of luck and a fair wind, I'm going to cut this out. See how we go. So I've done a Rit dye finish with a tongue oil over the top, and it seems to have come out alright. It's got that sort of rustic old mahogany look. Yeah, it's done all right. And I've cut the scratch plate. I've roughly cut it for the moment, but I'm going to, I don't know how I'm going to bevel the edge on it, but basically, because I've got that switch fill up there, which doesn't look great, I've made a scratch plate that will hopefully go over it and look something like that. I just need to, it's just roughly cut with a coping saw at the moment, but that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, one humbucker, and this might actually survive. So I was going to do a PTB circuit like in a G&L, where you have a bass and a treble control. So I bought a 1 meg pot to go in the end here, and then two 500k pots to go here. And what I needed was a 0.022 microfarad capacitor for this pot, and then a 0.0022 microfarad capacitor for this pot. Problem was, I could get the ones for this pot here, but could I find the 0.0022 capacitors? No, looked everywhere. I don't know where you get them. I literally Amazoned, I tried guitar forums, everything. So unfortunately I've just gone for a standard volume and tone with a standard 0.22 microfarad orange drop capacitor, and I've just filled the other hole, which is a bit of a shame, but there's nothing I can do about that. I can't get them, so onwards. Okay, so it's together, doesn't have any frets on yet. I'm going to have a go at fretting it next week, but essentially it's working. It's a bit Keith at the moment because it's only got 5 strings. I didn't have a bottom E in my string box, so I need to go and get that. But I thought for testing, if I put it in open G, as you can hear, it's got that sort of Stones vibe. It's quite a bit of fun actually without any frets. Anyway, onwards with the fretting. Gonna have a go at fretting this neck then. So it was going to be a fretless because the other frets fell out that were originally on the neck. So I filled all the gaps that the frets came out of and was going to do a fretless, which is kind of fun, but at the same time, to be realistic, it's a one-trick pony. So let's have a go at fretting. Never done it before. What could possibly go wrong? So my first 2 frets have actually gone in pretty well. Been told, I had a watch of Stu Mac, and he said use some either super glue, or if you're a bit less confident, use a wood glue. So I don't know if no nails is a thing, and there's probably luthiers all over the world screaming at me now saying don't use that, but I'm not a luthier, so that's what I've got and that's what I'm going to do, but it seems to be working. So I found a set of these which were perfect for trimming the fret ends, so that's what I've done, and they've actually come out not too bad. Got the old fret file, gave them a bit of a once over, and actually I've only done the first 5, but they feel pretty good. They've seated quite nicely, and yeah, I've got the rest to do, obviously, and quite a lot of work to get them level afterwards. And I've got to sand down, clean up the fretboard, get all the tool marks out of it, blah 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 blah. But ultimately, that's not gone too bad at all.